what does it even mean to, like, do philosophy?
Right.
Is it just sitting around thinking really hard about things?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, writing some of those thoughts down?
Right.
Or is there something more active,
Yeah.
a more engaged way to grapple with these really big questions, you know?
Yeah.
The meaning of life, reality.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a great question to start with, because today we are going deep
Deep.
into a philosophical tradition
Okay.
that has a very different perspective on what it means to be a philosopher, to truly act as a philosopher.
Ooh, I like this. So we're not talking about like the stereotypical image of the philosopher kind of detached in an armchair,
Exactly. We're going to be looking at Japanese philosophy.
Awesome.
And our main source today is going to be the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy,
Okay, the set.
which has this great, super comprehensive entry on Japanese philosophy.
So Japanese philosophy, it might seem a little niche, but it's got this incredible history.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Super long, super rich.
It's a blend of all these different influences from, Asia and the West, but it's also developed its own like really unique and fascinating ways of thinking.
Yeah, it really has. And what's really interesting is that at the core of Japanese philosophy, there's this emphasis on philosophy as a way.
No way.
You can think of it like Michi.
Okay.
Or do. It's about actively engaging with reality,
Yeah.
not just studying it from afar.
Not just observing.
Exactly.
Being a part of it.
Yeah, being in it, living it.
Living it.
And that's going to be our main thread today as we explore what it means to act philosophically within this tradition.
I'm excited. Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
So when Western philosophy really started making its way over to Japan in like the mid-19th century, there was a bit of a problem, right?
Yeah.
How do you even translate this word philosophy into Japanese?
Totally new concept.
Totally new. So what they ended up landing on was this term tetsugaku.
Etsugaku.
Now, the tetsu part of that comes from this classical East Asian tradition.
Right.
And it basically means wisdom, which kind of aligns with the Sophie bit of philosophy, philosophy, lover of wisdom.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is what they chose for the second part.
Gaku.
Gaku. So gaku meant learning, but learning in a very specific way, right?
Yeah.
Learning by following a model, like, you have a text or a teacher and you're kind of following that path.
A model.
It's interesting because gaku was also being used at that time for all of these new academic disciplines that were popping up in these Western-style universities.
Oh, okay.
So kind of like a counterpart to the German word Wissenschaft,
Interesting.
which, in German, that covers everything from the sciences to the humanities.
Right.
So you have this word gaku that kind of captures this sense of systematic, organized learning. So by putting tetsu and gaku together, they created tetsugaku, and academic philosophers became known as tetsugakusha. Tetsugakusha.
So essentially, those who partake in the Wissenschaft of wisdom.
Interesting. So there's already this kind of emphasis on scholarship built into the term then.
Totally. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because they very deliberately chose not to use another term that was already there in Japanese, tetsujin,
Tetsuju, okay.
which translates much more directly to just wise person.
I see.
Right.
So tetsujin is more like the classic, the traditional understanding of like the sage.
Exactly.
The wise person.
And tetsujin feels a lot closer to like that original Greek conception of the philosopher, right?
Yeah.
The lover of wisdom, someone who's actively pursuing wisdom. It's not just a detached study.
Right.
It's a way of life.
Exactly. So Tetsugakusha is more of the scholar of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
But Tetsujin is more like the pre-modern Japanese understanding of what a philosopher was.
Yeah.
Someone who's actually achieved a certain kind of mastery.
Right.
Through a dedicated practice.
A traditional way, yeah. And this could be the way of the Buddha. It could be the way of the Confucian sage.
Okay.
It could be the way of the Shinto kami.
So this idea of a way, this is a really important concept that we're going to keep coming back to.
Definitely.
Because it's not just about like intellectual understanding, right?
No.
It involves a deep personal engagement.
Yes. Transformation.
Transformation.
Yeah. It's not just acquiring a skill. It's a real profound kind of engagement.
Right. So it goes beyond just the technique or the knowledge itself.
It does, yeah. The philosopher and reality are really actively engaged, mutually shaping each other.
They're not separate.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they chose Tetsugakusha instead of Tetsujin.
Yeah.
Because by choosing Tetsugakusha, they were they were kind of making a distinction, weren't they, between two ways of knowing and crucially, two ways of acting as philosophers.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have, on the one hand, you have this more scholarly, more scientific, almost detached approach, right?
Trying to reflect reality objectively.
Right.
The goal of the Wissenschaft.
The goal of the Wissenschaft.
Yeah.
And then you have this other way, which is much more traditional in Japanese thought, embodied by the Tetsujin.
Yes.
This idea of personally engaging with reality, transforming yourself, transforming the world around you in the process.
A very different flavor of doing philosophy.
I like that flavor.
Yeah.
It's a good way of putting it. So maybe we can try and illustrate this a little bit for our listeners.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe think of it this way. The Tetsugakusha is kind of like a geologist trying to understand clay, right?
Okay.
They're applying their scientific knowledge, they're taking measurements, they're analyzing.
Right.
And they're building this kind of external relationship with the clay.
Okay.
The clay's over here, the geologist is over here. They're connected by this knowledge, but neither one is really being transformed by that knowledge.
Right, right. The geologist is acting as an observer.
An observer.
Exactly.
But then you have the Tetsujin, who's more like a master potter, right?
Okay.
They're understanding the clay, not just through like theory and analysis, but through this interactive process of working with the clay, molding it, shaping it.
Right.
And through that process, through that active creation, both the clay and the potter are being transformed.
Yeah, it's a much more kind of reciprocal relationship.
It is. And it's a much more active way of being a philosopher.
Totally.
It's not just, like you said, it's not just building this bridge to reality. It's about becoming a part of reality.
Right, yeah, becoming part of it.
And the Stanford Encyclopedia entry actually makes this really great comparison to Henri Bergson.
Oh, okay.
The philosopher. Yeah. And Bergson talks about the difference between moving around an object and entering an object.
I see.
Right.
So one is like a detached kind of intellectual exercise, and the other is like this deep participation.
Deep participation. So this idea of engaged knowing, of really being a part of the thing that you're trying to understand, this leads to some really interesting and unique hallmarks in Japanese philosophical analysis.
It does, yeah.
So one of the most fundamental ones is this idea of internal relations.
Internal relations, okay.
So instead of seeing the world as just like these separate pieces that are kind of connected by external forces, right? Like billiard balls bouncing off each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Japanese philosophy often sees it as this web of deeply intertwined relationships where each part shapes and is shaped by all the other parts.
Yeah, it's like a tapestry,
A tapestry.
Or like an ecosystem.
An ecosystem, yeah. Okay, so maybe we need to try and visualize this a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Because it can be kind of abstract. So in the typical kind of Western approach, we often look for an external connection between two things, right? So let's just call those things A and B.
A and B, okay.
And we're looking for this third thing, this element that links them. So we can call that R. So you have like two separate circles, right?
Okay.
Representing A and B. And then you have a line that joins them. And that line is R, the relationship.
Okay, so the relationship is outside of A and B.
It is. It's external to them.
I got it.
But in Japanese thought, the emphasis is often on how A and B internally overlap.
Okay.
So R, in this case, represents what they share, what intrinsically joins them.
Okay.
So instead of two separate circles with a line joining them, you have two overlapping circles.
Right.
And the shared area, the area where they overlap, that's the internal relation.
Gotcha.
So that's
also, so the relationship is part of what A and B are.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the really crucial difference is what happens if you remove that relation, right?
Yeah.
With an external relation, you take away the line, A and B are still intact.
Yeah.
They just don't have that connection anymore. But with an internal relation, if you dissolve the connection, if those two circles pull apart, then A and B, they each lose a part of themselves.
The part that was invested in the other.
Exactly. It's a much deeper, more fundamental kind of connection.
It is, yeah.
So maybe an example would help make this even clearer for our listeners.
Okay, yeah.
So let's think about marriage, right?
Okay. Marriage.
As a legal contract, piece of paper, that's an external relation.
Right.
Right.
It's defined by that external document.
Exactly. If the marriage ends, if you get a divorce, both people revert to their original legal status.
Yeah, yeah. The contract is broken.
The contract's broken, but the individuals are still whole.
Right.
But if you think of marriage as this loving relationship, right, that's an internal relation.
Okay.
Because if that love dissolves, if that connection breaks down, both people lose a part of who they were.
Yeah, the part that was intertwined with the other person.
Exactly.
I like that.
There's this great quote by Emily Dickinson, the poet.
Oh, yeah.
And she talks about how after losing someone very dear to her, she felt like she'd become a crescent.
Wow, a crescent.
Right.
That's powerful.
Like something had been taken away, like a part of her had been lost.
Yeah.
And that really captures this sense of shared essence that you get with internal relations.
It does. It really does.
So this concept of internal relations, this really has profound implications for how Japanese philosophy approaches all sorts of classic philosophical problems.
It does.
So take, for example, the mind-body problem, right?
The mind-body problem.
Okay,
right.
so Western philosophy has traditionally kind of treated the mind and the body as these separate things.
Yeah.
Discrete entities.
Externally related,
Sure.
trying to find the connection.
Exactly. And then it gets really caught up in this question of how are they connected?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
A search for the missing link.
Exactly. And if you can't find that external link, then the tendency is to try to eliminate the dualism.
Oh, I see.
Right.
So you either reduce the mind to the body or you reduce the body to the mind.
Exactly. But Japanese philosophy, it kind of starts from a different place.
Okay.
Traditionally, it assumes that the mind and body, they're already internally related.
Okay.
So they can be distinguished, right? You can talk about mental phenomena, you can talk about physical phenomena.
Yeah.
But you can't completely separate them without kind of violating their essential nature.
Okay, so it's not two separate circles.
Right.
It's more like that Venn diagram again.
Exactly.
With the overlapping sections.
It's one complex, it's a body-mind.
A body-mind.
So the focus isn't on trying to figure out what is constantly connecting these two separate things, the mind and the body.
Yeah.
It's on understanding how this body-mind actually functions and how the interrelationship between the mental and the somatic aspects, how that can deepen through practice.
Okay, I see. So it's not a fixed external connection.
No.
It's a changing internal relationship.
Exactly. And the way that you act both physically and mentally, that shapes this internal relationship.
Okay.
I think Iwasayasu, he gives this great example of learning to play the piano.
Oh, okay.
So when you're first starting out, you're a novice.
Yeah.
It's very much mind over body, right? You're memorizing the keys. You're trying to, get your fingers to do the right thing.
Like, yeah.
It's very mental.
Lots of thinking involved.
But then as you become more proficient, right, as you become a really good pianist, it becomes much more body leading mind.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Your fingers they know where to go.
They have your own knowledge.
They do. It's intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And that frees up your mind to really focus on the music, on the expression, on the creativity.
Yeah. So as you practice, the overlap between the mind and the body increases. The body-mind becomes this holistic functioning unit.
Exactly. And that allows for greater creativity, greater expression.
That's fascinating.
So this idea of internal relations, it doesn't just apply to the mind and the body, right? It extends to other areas of philosophy as well. So like ethics.
Okay, ethics.
So instead of asking, what are the external principles that should govern how we relate to each other, Japanese philosophy often shifts the focus to what the self and the other intrinsically share.
Okay.
So what's that common ground? What is it that gives rise to that relationship in the first place?
Yeah.
And so ethics becomes less about like imposing these external rules, and it becomes much more about discovering these interrelations.
I see. So acting ethically means recognizing and nurturing those internal connections.
Exactly. And we see this in aesthetics as well.
Okay, aesthetics. How does that work?
So instead of trying to explain art through, these external connections between the artist and the medium and the audience, Japanese philosophy will often look at the artwork itself as this presentation of an interresponsive field, which is often called kokoro.
Kokoro? All right.
Which basically means like heart, mind, spirit.
Okay.
It's kind of like this totality, right, of the artist's being. And the act of creating art, the act of appreciating art, it's seen as this this engagement within that shared field.
I see. So it's not just the artist creating something and then the audience passively observing it.
No.
It's a much more interactive process.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
And we even see this in political philosophy.
Uh-oh.
So like Watsuji Tetsu.
Watsuji Tetsu, okay.
Yeah. He offers this really interesting critique of social contract theory.
Okay.
Which, social contract theory is a very Western idea.
Right. Starts with these separate individuals.
Right.
Who come together and make an agreement.
Exactly. And Watsuji, he says, no.
Okay.
Human existence, it doesn't begin with these discrete individuals.
Yeah.
It begins with this inherent interpersonal betweenness.
Betweenness, okay.
Which he calls hito to hito no aidaga.
Hito to hito no aidaga.
Yeah.
So that's like the space between people.
It is. It's the relational space that we already inhabit before we even think of ourselves as separate individuals.
I see.
So our very being is kind of constituted by these relationships.
Wow. That's a very different starting point.
It is.
So we talked about internal relations.
Yes.
Are there any other kind of key hallmarks of Japanese thought that we should be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this one builds really nicely on what we've been talking about.
Okay.
So this is the idea of holographic relations between the whole and the part.
Holographic relations, okay.
Yeah. So in contrast to this kind of mosaic model of external relations where you have like all these individual tiles, right?
Yeah.
And they only make sense in relation to an external blueprint.
Right. Someone has to arrange them.
Yeah.
Tell them where to go.
Internal relations, they often work more like a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
Where each piece contains information about the pieces next to it.
Yeah. You can see how they fit together.
You can.
Yeah.
But the holographic model, it goes even further than that.
Okay.
It suggests that each part actually contains information about the entire whole.
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Wow.
So the whole is, in a sense, inscribed in each of its parts.
So like a hologram.
It is.
Where you can take a fragment of it, shine a light through it, and you get the whole image.
The whole image.
Albeit with less detail, maybe.
Yeah, with less detail.
Okay, so this idea that the part somehow contains the whole, that's not completely new in Western thought either, is it?
No, it's not. You think about like animistic cultures, for example.
Yep.
Or the medieval cult of relics.
Right.
The idea that a saint's finger bone could somehow contain their holiness.
Yeah.
But the Enlightenment came along, right? And it largely stripped this paradigm of its ontological significance, reduced it to a metaphor.
Right.
But in Japan, this holographic paradigm, it never really lost its philosophical power.
Interesting.
It continued to influence how they understood things like the relationship between the individual and the collective, for example.
Okay.
So I think one of the best examples of this, of how this idea of holographic relations plays out in Japanese thought is the way that Westerners often misunderstood the Japanese emperor as kami.
Kami.
So kami can be translated as spirit or deity or sacred power.
Yeah.
And Westerners, they often interpreted this as this kind of external transcendent relationship.
Right, like a god.
Like a god.
And the people are below him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this interpretation, it completely missed the inseparable connection between the emperor and the Japanese people.
I see.
So it's not an external relation, it's an internal relation.
Okay.
And so you have examples like the kamikaze pilots in World War II, right?
Yeah.
Which, to a Westerner, that just seemed like this act of insane self-sacrifice.
Right, to a higher being.
Exactly.
But if you look at it through this holographic understanding, it becomes something very different.
It does.
It's not just self-sacrifice, it's self-fulfillment.
Exactly.
Because they're dying for the emperor, but the emperor embodies all Japanese people.
The whole.
So they're dying for everyone.
And that individual act resonates with and embodies the whole.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So that holographic relationship is key to understanding that.
It is.
Okay, so that's the emperor. What about this concept of kokutai?
Ah, kokutai.
Which Western critics often see as just a metonym.
Right. The emperor just standing in for the state.
Right.
Yeah. But within Japanese thought, kokutai, it's argued to reflect this holographic relationship.
So it's not just symbolic.
Yeah.
It's more like the DNA in a drop of blood.
Yeah.
It contains the information of the whole person.
The part embodies the whole.
Okay.
And we even see this in Japanese aesthetics.
Okay, interesting. So like minimalism, for example.
Exactly. Japanese minimalism, it's not just about elimination or lack, right?
Yeah.
It's about focusing on a particular detail, precisely because it reveals the whole kokoro.
Okay, so it's not subtracting.
No.
It's revealing.
It's revealing. So
Okay.
think of like a haiku. Right.
Yeah.
A haiku, it's just 17 syllables.
Right.
But it's not omitting anything.
Okay.
It's holographically representing the entirety of an experience.
Yeah.
It's inviting the reader to perceive the whole
Within the part.
within the part.
Fascinating. So we've talked about engaged knowing. We've talked about internal relations and this holographic model.
Yeah.
I think it would be really helpful now to look at how Japanese philosophy actually deals with opposing viewpoints.
Yeah. That's a great point, because I think this is another area where Japanese thought really diverges from the typical Western approach.
Yeah, and the Stanford Encyclopedia, it outlines three main forms of what they call assimilation.
Assimilation.
So instead of, that Western tendency to just try and refute an opposing view,
Right. Prove it wrong.
prove it wrong,
Yeah.
establish your own view as the correct one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Japanese philosophy, it's often much more interested in trying to absorb the opposing view
Okay.
into its own framework.
So it's not about like this adversarial debate
No.
where one side has to win and the other side has to lose.
Exactly.
It's more about trying to find a way to integrate those different perspectives.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are those three forms of assimilation?
Okay, so the first one is allocation,
Allocation.
which is basically the most accommodating approach,
Okay.
where you have these two opposing views and you accept both of them, but you kind of assign them to their own distinct domains.
Okay. So they're both true, but they apply to different spheres.
Exactly.
So they're not really in conflict.
They're not in conflict. They coexist peacefully.
Yeah. So do we have an example of this?
Oh, yeah. There's a classic example. Prince Shutoku's 17-article Constitution.
Prince Shutoku.
Yeah, which drew on Confucianism for social ethics
Okay.
and Buddhism for psychological principles.
So each tradition has its own place.
Each tradition has its own sphere of influence.
Very cool. All right, so that's allocation. What's the next one?
The next one is relegation,
Relegation.
which is a little bit more assertive, maybe.
Okay.
So in this case, you accept the truth of the opposing view,
Okay.
but you kind of position it as a partial or less fundamental component within your own more inclusive original position.
So you're kind of like subsuming it in a way?
Yeah, subsuming it.
Saying, okay, you're right, but you're only right in this limited sense.
Exactly. And a good example of this is esoteric Buddhism's tendency to view Shinto-kami as just local manifestations of deeper Buddhist principles.
Okay, so they're not denying the kami.
No.
But they're saying that they're ultimately explained by Buddhism.
Right.
Okay, so we have allocation and relegation.
Right.
What's the third one?
The third one is hybridization.
Hybridization.
So this is where things get really interesting because you have this interaction
Yeah.
between two theories and they kind of cross-pollinate.
Okay.
And out of that emerges something entirely new
Okay.
where the original forms are no longer clearly identifiable.
So it's not just like adding 1 + 1.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new thing is created.
It's like a chemical reaction.